Assalamu alaikum. Some have called them shameless, others traitors, some thieves, whilst yet others have questioned their Iman. Neither are far from the truth, albeit I let you see the facts and then decide. What is undisputable is that in a week which saw Trump's hostile colonial intent to take over Gaza being announced, it emerges secret clandestine meetings between so-called UK Imams and Zionists have been taking place in the UK. Now, to be honest, I am not surprised by these so-called Imams. They have a woeful track record. It suffices to say, if the genocide of the Palestinian people has not impacted their conscience and behavior, then nothing will. The fact of the matter is, frequenting the corridors of power and being rewarded with titles, privileges, or other tangible, intangible benefits has long been a tradition of the colonial masters and their loyal servants. Whether it was the Arab tribal leaders or it is the so-called religious scholars, all have one thing in common. They are all colonial Western collaborators preaching loyalty to the empire, to the West, at the expense of their own people. And so this rotten tradition continues to this very day. You use Western colonial sympathizers, whether they're imams, sheikhs, politicians, or the like. It's only a handful of carefully selected so-called imams who are shamefully ready to do their colonial masters' bidding. And today this bidding is aimed at legitimizing, normalizing the colonial occupation of Palestine and Al-Aqsa. It is known as normalization. The treachery ignores the intrinsic Islamic bond to Al-Aqsa and Palestine, the sacrifices of this ummah's predecessors in the opening and the regaining of Palestine, and it sadistically is unperturbed by the grotesque genocide of the noble Palestinian people. How else can any so-called Imam who believes in Allah and His Messenger be ready to stand with Zionists who openly support apartheid Israel, its genocide war on Gaza, in secret clandestine meetings? No God-fearing Muslim would ever share a platform of any kind with any such individuals at any time. The so-called Imams who attended the meeting with their Zionist counterparts included representatives from Ahl al-Bayt, Dr. Saeed Razawi, representatives from the Ismaili National Council, Imam Asim, member of the British Empire from Leeds, whilst it appears representatives from the Ahmadiyya Qadiani community were missing or not invited, which would have really completed the lineup. As for their Zionist counterpart, Chief Rabbi Mervis is well known for praising the Israeli Defense Force, the IDF. Immensely proud, he says, of their actions in Gaza. Outstanding performance of the Israeli military in occupied Palestine. His son, Danny Mervis, is serving in the IDF in Gaza, and he openly supported the fanatical Jewish settlers' march in the occupied Palestinian territories on their annual flag march, in which death to the Arabs and other racist slogans are targeted towards the Palestinian people. They follow in the footsteps of other so-called Imams like Dr. Musharraf Hussain, Imam Asim Hafiz, who previously travelled to Israel, organized in conjunction with the UK Israeli embassy. So how do these Imams get away with such deception? Well, that's the clever part, quote unquote. Well, at least that's what they think. These secret meetings, which they don't tell their congregation, their communities about, are done with pure satanic deception under the seemingly clever guise of Abrahamic faiths or Abrahamic Accords or Muslim-Jewish reconciliation accords. They're done under the guise of improving community relations or interfaith or promoting peace and community cohesion or other benefits. They will even use Quranic verses and examples from the seerah of the Messenger ﷺ to justify this shameful capitulation and compromise deals like their predecessors did. Ghulam Ahmad of Qadian, the Ahmadiyya movement, used the Quran to justify his false claim to being a prophet. Like the Munafiqs of Madinatul Munawwara, violated the institution of the masjid and used it as a place of dirar, plotting and planning against the Muslims and Islam. And like the Quraysh, incentivized the noble companion Uthman radiallahu anh with the rights to perform Umrah and Tawaf, whilst denying it to the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his companions. These government string-attached, politically motivated plots do, however, offer a generous return to their loyal agents, including titles, OBE, MBE, and even becoming Sir, media access and exposure, networking, access to other privileges, even more funding for nepotism-ridden management teams, Imams, and authorities. And of course, there is the allure of fully expensed international and national trips and travel. So what's in it for the Zionists and their colonial masters? In one word, acceptance. The aim is both sinister but boldly open. In return, you must accept, normalize your communities to the Zionist occupation of Palestine. Make Zionism palatable, acceptable amongst British Muslims. Demoralize supporters of the Palestinian cause by making them feel that further struggle is futile. Accept the status quo. And therefore Muslims gradually discard the Palestinian cause and forget the plight of the Muslims around the world and reject the idea of an ummah. So what is the congregation's, the community's duty and responsibility towards such imams? Firstly, we need to be aware and not politically naive. The congregation, the community, the Muslim ummah must be made aware of these sinister plots and plans. We need to be politically educated, aware, so we are not misled, and therefore we have the ability to hold those in authority to account. Secondly, know your Islam. We need to have some level of understanding of the Quran, Sunnah, and the Seerah of the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Else rotten elements will try to abuse aspects of Islam, e.g. the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, the notion of Ahl al-Kitab, the Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam, and such concepts to justify their anti-Islamic positions of outright compromise and even violations of the Sharia. Thirdly, speak out, hold imams responsible, accountable, and name and shame. The congregation and community must speak up to such so-called imams and hold them to account. Holding them to account will make them realize, even hesitate when the next proposal is received. They will feel uncomfortable from the community's accountability and fear being criticized in public during Friday prayers, as such imams are not eligible to stand on the pulpit of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Fourthly, demand an immediate and an uncompromising apology from these so-called imams who shamefully stood with Zionists, and a sincere tawbah that they will never repeat such a sin. These imams are all too ready and willing to apologize whenever the Western media demands it from them, so they shouldn't hesitate to apologize to their congregation. 5. Remind them about the role of the Imam in Islam. The role of the Imam is one of leadership, guidance, following in the noble footsteps of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the noble companions, and the great scholars of this ummah. He is supposed to protect his community from the political, social, ideological, theological corruptions of a secular society. He is supposed to be courageous in speaking the truth to power and authority, and not afraid, so that his congregation learn from his example and the meaning of holding on to one's faith is made clear. Finally, as for the compromised imams who are not ashamed, do not apologize, and do not fix their ways, and do not benefit from such reminders, and continue in their subservience to the corrupt agenda of the West, these so-called imams must be replaced. Never be allowed to hold position of imam or any leadership within the Muslim community. The congregation, it is the responsibility of the community to hold elections, pass motions, express their no confidence, and engage in holding to account within the halal and legal processes. The reality is, the most appropriate designation for these compromised imams is not as an imam of the pulpit of the Messenger of Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, but rather as an official employee of Whitehall who they serve best. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.